Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend and the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Hey, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.
Boom! Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live from my studio/RV dining room, located directly inside America. Welcome back, folks of the interwebs. Once again, apologize for my delayed here start. A little technical difficulties had to work out, but once again, JJ Vance here, host of Operation GCD. Welcome back for another Sundaze. Perhaps more notably, though, not the vice president. And anyhow, folks, I will be your pilot and navigator here tonight for this shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude. And I got a real barn burner on deck for you folks here tonight. The legend of Buffalo Jared Raviza. This is a tale mired in mystery and high weirdness, to say the least. This character, Buffalo Jared Raviza, that is, he May 20. Let's see, he and I go way back, and we'll be getting into the origin story of where I interacted with Buffalo Jared Raviza here. But on May 26th of 2024, the name Buffalo Jared erupted from the depths of the name he wasn't Buffalo Jared yet. The name Jared Raviza erupted from the depths of my brain hole, in the layers of malted hops and bong resin that covered that memory, because I was trying to forget the guy. But May 26th of last year, just over a year ago, he popped up on my Google alerts because he was on a murdered a dude, got real stabby in Deep River, Connecticut one morning, and then went on a multi-state stabbing spree that afternoon. One homicide, the rest of a bunch of attempted homicides, but it was quite a tale. And one of the eyewitnesses to these accounts stated that old Jared here looked like Buffalo Bob from Silence of the Lambs, and I kind of agree. So That's why I call him Buffalo Jared Raviza now. But he interesting character nonetheless. So like I said, my interactions with old Buffalo Jared here. This is we got Buffalo Jared right here. This is actually the home of the Deep River, Connecticut home he was sharing with his boyfriend, as is reported, an much older man. Who the connection they had together was that old fella had invented a new rake. And not to besmirch the dead, but a new rake it's about as dumb as it sounds. But he hired old Buffalo Jared here as his public relations rep, and that's sadly or scarily enough, that or creepy enough, I suppose. That's how I met Jared Raviza here. So, that this occurred in May 2024. As you can see here, this creepy looking fella. Not exactly the man you'd expect to run a marketing and PR company, yet that's precisely what he did. However, that wasn't the family business. The family business was sports hypnotists and sports psychology stuff. And, a lot to be said there, lot to unpack there, and I'll get into that in a minute. So before I go on any further here, folks of the interwebs, I do thank you all for joining me to get a little GCD here this evening in the Operation GCD Sundaze, Volume 2. We got the legend of Buffalo Jared Raviza. And in my typical efforts as of late to Muppetize everybody, I Muppetized old Buffalo Jared here. As you can see from this photograph, from his Instagram photo, this is about a year before the murders, 2023. He doesn't smile in any photographs, and that's one thing I picked up on when when someone contacts me and says, "Hey, I want to be your public relations representative." I mean, I wasn't searching for a public relations representative, but when someone contacts you and says that, you'd expect them to be savvy in marketing and maybe smile in a photograph and not look like a total creepster. Even so, that was one of the things that attracted my attention to the creepy factors around old Buffalo Jared here. But it's not just, I suppose, not just that creepy nature of it. So Buffalo Jared, if I can give you a quick rundown, well, first of all, I've covered this a little bit here on Operation GCD, once or twice, in previous Operation GCD lives or, Fridays with Operation GCD and the Occult Rejects. I've touched on bits and pieces of this because I find the whole narrative very interesting. Buffalo Jared is from a infamous sports psychology and sports hypnotist family, the Raviza family, and some of those tales I have told in recent past here on the show. Again, this is the Operation GCD Sundaze Patreon preview, and I will be getting into all of these greater details and unpacking my Buffalo Jared file, if you will, that I've been more or less collecting now for almost 6 years when we first met back in 2019. Because immediately, this dude failed my ocular pat down, and it wasn't just his inability to smile in his PR company marketing material. Even it was other elements when I finally did acquiesce to a conversation with this man who was very adamant for me to hire him as my PR rep. I told him from moment one, don't need a PR rep. Very open and very forward with him on that. He wouldn't take no for an answer. So we continued communicating. He contacted me originally through Twixter and eventually would have a phone call with the man. And that phone call, holy smokes, it was just red flag after red flag. I had Kill Bill sirens going off in my brain hole that day. She has a giant deck in Treasure Island. I might be in love. Kane, that sounds like a problem of a different era or different type, horse of a different color, if you will. But Kane B's the Purge. Greetings, sir. I look forward to purging with you on the Idaho 4 case tomorrow. Highly recommend folks go check out Kane B's The Purge for some Idaho 4 coverage, weekly updates where Kane and I do our Abbott and Costello Idaho 4 routine, which we took on our road show the other day to another Idaho 4 creator show, and over there, True Crime with Dago, and we may have broken Dago's co-host Jesse because he accused myself and Kane of mind raping him with a red pill. You know, he didn't ask us to red pill him, but you know, he was unintentionally red pilled apparently. So I said, "You're welcome, sir. I'm happy to do what I can to help." So back to Buffalo Jared Raviza, this infamous sports hypnotist situation. So you know, obviously before I took that phone call, I did a little bit of a background on the man, so I knew who I was talking to. I really didn't care up until that point, but you know, it's these elements of the, you know, that I call high weirdness, you know, not just the instances of high weirdness, but how time and history seem to repeat themselves. And you know, and something told me when I first met Buffalo Jared, not only was it not going to be well, he was just Jared back then. Not only was it not going to be a brief interaction with the man, I could kind of tell that from moment one. But when I stopped communicating with him using the COVID lockdown, you know, time frame as an excuse, so we're talking like my interactions with him were like August of 2019 through probably like June or so of 2020. So with a phone call halfway in between, and it was, you know, during that time I kind of I logged in my brain hole. I'm like, this ain't the last I've heard of this fella. And again, because why would someone be so adamant to hire someone as a PR rep when I never had asked for any PR rep and I told him I didn't need one? So then I started unpacking that from there and understanding, trying what the hell's going on here with this fella, and why does he keep stalking me to, you know, hire him as my PR rep? And eventually I felt like, you know, this dude just wants to, you know, kill me and wear my skin as a human coat. And so when he showed up as Buffalo Jared later, I'm like, well, you know what? This makes sense. But here on Operation GCD, I have touched on a number of these topics before. In fact, a lot of these matters came up recently in a Operation GCD live on Wednesdays, occult and esoteric review of Back to the Future. So if you remember, we did Back to the Future 1, but if you folks of the interwebs recall, the plot line for Back to the Future 2 revolves around some sports gambling, a sports betting book. And in that book, one of the bets and predictions that are achieved and gambled upon is by knowing the future from this book and traveling back to the past with it, was the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series in 2015. So that was 30 years prior to the 1985 plot line. And they almost guessed it right, because the Chicago Cubs infamously were under what was known as the curse of the GOAT for nearly 100 years. I want to say, let's call it circa 94 years. And that curse of the GOAT was essentially preventing, as the curse and legend goes, that curse of the GOAT was preventing the Chicago Cubs from winning the World Series. And again, they won in 2015 or 2016, but Back to the Future almost predicted it in 2015. And I got a brief clip from a recent review where I, you know, comment on this. I just want to share this with the folks of the interwebs here. And, you know, again, back to this note of, I kind of knew Jared wasn't going anywhere when I first met him. And when I last spoke to Jared, I kind of knew, I had a feeling in my gut that, you know, from the gut and whatever that nerve is that sends the messages up to your brain hole, that was all telling me that this ain't the last I heard of the fella. So wasn't too shocked when I got the Google alert in May of last year. I'm a little shocked on the Transpocalypse multi-state homicidal psychopathic killing spree, where he, you know, did some of the most Looney Tune activities, and we'll get into that here tonight. But it was the, you know, it's that fact, or it's that notion that things from the past are going to come back and haunt you, and holy smokes. Because to be quite honest with you folks of the interwebs, I don't know where Buffalo Jared is today, and touch on that here in a moment. But here's a clip from the previous occult and esoteric review on Back to the Future relative to my thoughts on this whole predicting the Cubs and it hitting a little too close to home, if you ask me. Aspects, you know, Danny does use the casino money and shakes up the Republican Party. And the movie did almost get right the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series, right? They were off by a year. They got that right? Well, they were off by a year. They won in 2016. Close they won in 2016. So, well, that's what I'm saying. It's creepy enough, right? And that whole incident of the Cubs winning the World Series, that incident's real creepy to me. So it was called the Curse of the GOAT. This curse of the goat was like one of the most infamous
wow.
curses in any major sports, right? Haunting the Cubs for nearly 100 years. Well, the folks that are credited for breaking the curse of the goat is the Raviza sports hypnosis and sports psychotherapist family business, as in Buffalo Jared.
Yeah.
That man, my former stalker, his dad and uncle, he was actually part of the family business too, were the folks who broke the curse of the goat. The Chicago Cubs officially recognized Ken Raviza as the person who broke the curse of the goat. So
Wow.
that aspect of the Back to the Future series, it's a little close to home.
What if the Cub thing was a year and a day? Like it was like a H.
So as I was saying, hits a little too close to home when I was just discussing that recently, and it's I don't know, it's still, even just watching it and think about it, it seems very odd to me. But we see Ken Raviza, a titan in the mental side of baseball and mentor to Joe Madden, dies at age 70. So when they won, there was a big celebration. Everybody was celebrating Ken Raviza, and when he passed away a few years ago, and the family business closed up, and I don't know if that was some sort of a triggering event in the lives of Buffalo Jared and his father, but they both seem to have taken an interesting turn after that. So, but in the notion, I just thought that was interesting in the notion of Back to the Future and blast from the past. This is a blast from the past for me. So as I was saying, I watched intently that day in May of last year when I got that morning AM Google alert, Buffalo Jared on the prowl. Again, this photograph right here was taken allegedly by his boyfriend / PR client for that rake that I was talking about, that new rake. Again, you can't, I mean, it's as dumb as it sounds. I mean, I'll pull up a picture here, but it's not an innovation in anything, but that was the original pretense of their relationship. But this is the home, and this was allegedly taken by Bruce Feldman is the victim's name, 70-year-old man or 72-year-old man. He dies, and this is Deep River, Connecticut. I just think it's strange. Look at this getup he's got on. He's got a midriff NASA t-shirt. We're going full trans here. Looks like he's got possibly some sort of pink thong on. That's interesting. That's stylish. I don't know. He just looks, I mean, this is the ultimate, creepy photo if you ask me, but this is right there at the crime scene. I don't know what these dashiki looking paint things are, but the whole situation, just taking the whole scene, folks of the interwebs. This is Buffalo Jared right here, moments before he went on this, hour, I think it's 2 days before he went on the multi-state stabbing spree. So, I don't know. And this guy's kind of a freak of athletic nature, right? Kind of a freak of athletic nature. Again, through that sports training, sports psychology, sports hypnotist, they used to have all these photos on his PR website, even of him doing all this sports training and all this, I don't know. I'll pull up a picture. He kind of claimed he sold himself as this jet setting world-class athlete and skier, right? He's always doing skiing stuff. And at the time in 2019, he was engaged to a woman. The woman in all of his photographs on his website, PR events, they're on like red carpet things, right? Red carpet things, situations, fancy things. They're dressed up. They still won't smile. Him nor his ex-fiance, but that's who he claimed in the phone conversation in detail. This guy shared a lot of details with me. I shared almost none, but over the tenure of our communications, he shared a lot of details. That woman was allegedly his fiance. Nonetheless, some point in time after that, he seems to have gone some sort of trans-apocalypse style, and then took on a boyfriend twice his age for some reason. I'm not sure what that's all about. But anyhow, again, they met through Bruce Feldman hiring him as his PR representative in the Raviza Jones firm. So this was billed as being from Beverly Hills in New York City offices. He had kind of vanity pieces, I guess. They were they've since been deleted and removed from the interwebs archives, but he essentially had almost like his own PR article in like these kind of high class magazines like Beverly Hills Magazine or whatever. And he's like, oh, I'm a world class skier and athlete, and I have this PR firm, and he's trying to do that kind of deal. But I don't know that he ever had any clients. His stories around how he ever got connected to me in the first place were super suspect. And again, that's what that conversation I finally had with the man and a lot of the red flags. And, I'll unpack those things here tonight, and I hope folks can stick around for the Patreon side of this show here. We'll be jumping over there shortly, but I suppose outside of the the transpocalypse, multi-state massacre, manhunt, because again, I was glued to the coverage that day as he traversed a couple hundred miles or so through Connecticut and Massachusetts, driving to a theater, an AMC theater in Braintree, Massachusetts, where he stabbed a number of, I believe it was 4 teenage girls. Then he drove to about another 40, 60 miles away to Plymouth, Massachusetts, down the Cape, towards the Cape, right at the edge of the Cape there. And, Plymouth Rock, that place, where the Pilgrims landed. He went to Pilgrimville, drove through McDonald's drive-thru, ordered food. So when I say this sports hypnosis family he comes from, and this general idea that he may in fact be some sort of, programmed killer or hypno-controlled assassin, I think it's important to note the activities he did entertain in his life here on this manhunt after he, already murked a dude in Deep River. They're already onto him there. They know who he was. It's not like they didn't know his identity. So they're already looking for the guy. There's a manhunt for him. Then they know he's in Braintree because some lunatic with blonde hair looking like Buffalo Bob came running out of the theater after stabbing 4 girls and laughing or slashing them. He stabbed the boyfriend and then goes to McDonald's drive-thru, orders food, goes to the window. I don't know that he paid. They never found any reports of that. But they did apparently try to hand him the food through the window, and he didn't like it, and so he stabbed that employee. And then he pulls around front, and by all reports, parked his vehicle in a parking spot, walked up to the window, pissed on the front of the McDonald's, walked inside the McDonald's, stabbed a different employee, got back into his Porsche SUV, drove at a high rate of speed. Apparently, no one's following him at this point, according to reports. Drives at a high rate of speed down the Massachusetts Parkway there and wrecks in a one-vehicle accident. So at that point in time, there was already apparently police were in pursuit, but it wasn't a high-speed pursuit. He just somehow wrecks, I guess, right? And almost has you can see the wrecked vehicle, but, it must speak to the safety of those Porsche SUVs because he's got, no marks on them. But if you consider the mind control aspects there and kind of the Raviza business, I think that's interesting. But you consider the fact that once this dude went to jail that day, right? I've gone over this in past Operation GCD shows where I show the screen there as we search the court website for his case. No record, no public record of his case in Plymouth, where he's allegedly being held and currently at the Bridgewater State Mental Hospital near Plymouth, allegedly by all reports. And then the murder charges in Connecticut, he's been indicted for these things, but there was no public court record. And I find that very interesting. Again, we'll go over the most recent updates tonight in that search and journey, but I've done it numerous times here in the past 8 months. And yeah, it's folks can go back and look at those shows and, or catch them when they're enjoying Operation GCD. I occasionally touch on this tale, but tonight we're going to do the full scale Buffalo Jared Raviza, the legend of Buffalo Jared Raviza, that is. Looking rough. Yeah, Buffalo Jared, I know. I had him uppetize him. I'm not sure which one's better, the demonic cat with the pentagram in the background or the regular version. But, it's odd that this guy's case isn't there. And the other thing that's odd is the media doesn't really report his name correctly. So they still call him Jared Raviza. He legally changed his name in Martha's Vineyard before the murders to Jared Jones. And he changed his firm to Raviza Jones. So I don't know what the name change is about. I don't know all those details. All I know is the media is not reporting that properly. What else are they not reporting properly? And I'll show how the court record. That's the only court record I can find is the court record for him changing his name in Martha's Vineyard. And I believe the instance of assault the next month. So he was living in Martha's Vineyard with his father, the hypnotist, sports psychologist dude from the Raviza family business there. The folks that broke the curse of the goat. and he apparently assaulted his father there, and his father was pressing charges about it. That happened a month before the murders, but those are the only records I could find of the man, and it is interesting that he's of such, not only just this infamous sports hypnotist family, but obviously of some sort of affluent, upper socioeconomic nature, living there on Martha's Vineyard, and it's actually on Martha's Vineyard where he filmed this on his Instagram. Added the Buffalo Bill music. I obviously added the Buffalo Bill music later is actually the parody of Buffalo Bill there, Buffalo Bob from Clerks 2. So Jay and Silent Bob, that is. But it is interesting because if anyone's familiar with the instance where Obama's chef drowned there in Martha's Vineyard, right? What was that? August of 2023. So Buffalo Jared's, I don't know the date on that video. It's actually around that time, quite honestly. I'm just saying, if you have a mind-controlled assassin, he's filming videos like that in the swamps of Martha's Vineyard. That's in very close proximity to the shallow inland water area or pond, which Obama's chef died apparently while I don't know, whatever they call that, paddleboarding. So I don't know. I'm not saying Buffalo Jared did it. Certainly not implying that. I'm just saying, isn't it strange that this seemingly mind-controlled assassin fella was living in Martha's Vineyard at the time when Obama's chef drowned and filming videos in down there by the water, right in the general proximity where Obama's chef died of this weird alleged drowning, right? Not a lot of details, right? Alleged, the first reported the Obama family wasn't even on the island, and they're like, oh wait, they were on the island, but they just weren't at home, and no one reported it for hours. The circumstances were suspect, etc. But I don't know. And of course, the last but not least, with what creeps me out about Buffalo Jared here is, besides the his actual the way he responded and insisted on me hiring him as a PR guy, wouldn't take no for an answer. The creepy nature in which I felt around the guy and communications with him at all times, written and the one phone call. I just felt like he wanted to stab me where my skin as a human coat. And I think I might have been correct in that assessment because, he certainly went on to do some similar things, some homicidal maniac things. And that creeps me out, obviously, as well. But, the lack of reporting, the improper reporting, the seemingly non-public court cases that this involves, the inability to locate this man. They tell me he's in Bridgewater Mental Hospital in Massachusetts, but I assure you, I'm watching my six there, Jared. No idea where you're at, bud. But I don't want that blast from the past. It's bad enough to read about this guy. But I suppose the other thing is just the obvious totality of those events. But then once again, to get real noided. I had to play that. I get a kick out of that video. You'll see the Nirvana smiley face t-shirt, which that smiley face, as far as Nirvana was concerned, has the same origin story as I would argue the same influence and same origin story as the chaos symbol the smiley face killer cult uses when they murder young men across America for the last 20 plus years in these quote unquote accidental drownings, which are murder and ritual human sacrifices. But so you got homicidal, possibly mind-controlled hypnotic assassin fella hanging out down around where they found Obama's chef under weird death circumstances. I'm not saying Buffalo Jared did. I'm just saying, like, someone should ask these questions. But now I appreciate folks of the interwebs joining me here tonight here to get a little GCD. I hope I've given a general outline of the events here we're going to be exploring and unpacking here on, and again, some of more my personal experiences with the man. Unpacking here on the Patreon side of Operation GCD Sundaze here this evening, but I'm just trying to catch up on a couple of the chats here. Foot picks to papers. I hope not. We don't need to do anything like that. No selling of any kinds of foot picks. Certainly not mine. I'm not interested in such activities for sure. Neither. So we got the next week. Before I go any further here, as I'm reading through some of the the comments here. Next week we got here on Operation GCD Live, we have the case of Edward Wayne Edwards, the serial killer you have never heard about, and that'll be an interesting journey. Oh, disregard. I'm sorry. That's 2 weeks. My apologies. That's in 2 weeks. Next week is the case of Nathaniel Bar Jonah. Now that's a different serial killer you probably also have never heard about. So that is the kid diddling homicidal psychopathic cannibalistic serial killer that I came face to face with in Great Falls, Montana, in the Cascade County Jail, because I was running my mouth, and the sheriff's deputies were like, "We got a way to deal with you, boy." So they locked me up in front of this dude who was waiting his murder trials for the kid diddling, cannibalistic, serial killing stuff. But apparently, when the year prior, so this would have been 2001. This was my first assignment in the Air Force. I stationed in Great Falls, 99, Great Falls, Montana, Mounts from Air Force Base. Interesting environment. I see a lot of comparisons there between there and Minot, North Dakota, not only just the Air Force missions, but of the nuclear missiles, but this weird cold activity in the towns. So this dude was obviously, in my opinion, had some weird cold activity going on in and around him, but nonetheless he was apparently murdering folks and serving up human meat burgers at the church barbecues. But not only the church barbecues, at the Hardee's where he worked on the late night down on Central Avenue. And I didn't always eat at the Hardee's on late night or on Central Avenue, but when I did, it was the late night. And in the year 2000, the summer of 2000 specifically, I may have, in fact, eaten some human meat burgers, courtesy of Nathaniel Bar Jonah here, who I, of course, muppetized. So that's next week. And then the lead detective on that case is the following Sundaze, is a story about the lead detective on that case. So the lead detective from Great Falls, Montana Police Department would later go on to write what I would assert is, thus far at least, the definitive book on this serial killer you've never heard of, Edward Wayne Edwards. So this dude here was diabolic, murdering folks for decades now. Edwards claims this dude was the Zodiac killer, and amongst, all these other things, including the Atlanta child killer and stuff like that. Now, there's a strong argument to be made about his involvement in a lot of these things, but I would argue it's more of a team type setting, and he's more of a leader. But he did infiltrate the Atlanta child killing task force and was later posing as a Marietta police sergeant, and was later arrested at a Marietta police sergeant's home in 1983 for the arson fire in Pennsylvania, where he tried to burn the evidence of that police uniform. So a lot to be said here about old Edward Wayne Edwards, but the guy who busted Nathaniel Bar Jonah is the guy who wrote this book, retired Great Falls PD detective John Cameron. And traumatized, no kidding, dude. You can probably get traumatized there just by looking at Buffalo Jared Raviza. You know what I mean? So that's the following week, and then Operation GCD Sunday or GCD Live this Wednesday. I got Troublemaker Jonah coming back as a guest. We're gonna be doing a lot of jumping into the details surrounding Operation PatCon, how it connects to all the white nationalist movements out of Idaho, to include folks like Israel Keys, the serial killer Israel Keys, and the Kehoe brothers, whom he grew up with. So that'll be an interesting tale with Troublemaker Jonah, and highly recommend folks check that out. In fact, I see Jonah in the chat right now. There you go, sir. Looking forward to Wednesday's conversation. And folks, check that out. And then Fridays this week, Operation GCD and Occult Rejects Fridays. Got Phil Cesario coming back. That's going to be a real barn burner, just as with Jonah here. A lot of details with both of these men. Very sharp. I highly recommend folks check that out. And as I'm trying to play catch up here on the chat, I don't know that's going to ever happen. So I appreciate folks commenting and participating here. Folks join us on the Operation GCD Sundaze Patreon. And if you hear this in the future, check out the broadcast. They'll be there on recorded fashions in video and audio format. And we'll be over there here immediately following this here music. So folks of the interwebs, thank you all for joining me here on the Patreon preview to get a little GCD, and I hope you all can join us over there. If not tonight, in the future, got number of things in the works over there, including not just the Sundaze. I'll be doing a Operation GCD Thursdays, unpacking a lot of these stories around the quote unquote satanic murders, ritual, I would assert, ritual human sacrifices, in the quote unquote satanic panic that was instituted and perpetrated amongst the public in which to dispel these crimes and make folks think that's silly. So that's the anatomy of a satanic panic. And, you know, I'm going to be going over folks like Ted Gunderson, the roles he played, you know, other characters such as John Todd, who was big in perpetrating a lot of these things. So just going over, unpacking the entire spectrum of activities that folks call satanic panic, and then using a number of characters in those narratives, Gunderson, John Todd, etc., to demonstrate how this is a well-orchestrated network in which to dispel these activities from ever being brought to light. And that's why today still I have conversations with seemingly, you know, with folks that I, you know, by all appearances are intelligent by the words and statements they're making to me. And then, you know, again, no disrespect to some folks that I've had discourse with on these topics as of late, but I'm often shocked when I hear folks try to tell me who've made a lot of very logical, reasonable statements on murder, crime, etc., then try to tell me that satanic panic was real. So that'll be an interesting series to check out for sure. And if y'all can't make it to the Patreon this evening, see y'all on Fridays and Wednesdays. But on that note, thanks for joining us here to get a little GCD, folks, and catch you next time.
Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend and the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Any world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.
Boom!